So, panelists, how you guys doing?
Great.
Good, good. You all got some food?
Hello?
Yeah.
I think all your mics are on. We should be good to go that way.
We're good to go?
Ah, there we go. Okay. So, to kick things off, why don't we do this? Since some of us don't actually know you yet,
Yeah.
what we're going to do...
Hello?
Ah, there we go. Oh,
Okay. Hello?
oh, and everyone, if we can keep it quiet in the room for us. Thank you, guys.
I think it's okay.
But what we're going to do is we're going to get started here, and why don't we go down the line, and we're going to get to know you, and why don't we just keep it a little bit short of getting to know what's your name, what you do, and then what kind of investments you're either looking for or helping to source with either your technology or as an investor. And that way we'll get to know you briefly, and then we'll dig down into some of those questions there. But why don't we start right down here?
Okay. Manuel Suet. I'm leading BTG Travel. It's a top concierge company that operates in the US, Brazil, and also in Portugal. We pretty much use AI as part of our operations, especially when we combine high-tech developments in our app, but also with personalized concierge service. So that's a little bit about myself.
Thank you, thank you.
My name is James Bates. I have 3 hats. My first hat is I'm founder and CEO of a medical AI company. We use artificial intelligence to completely automate the medical visit. I'm also general partner in a hedge fund, which uses artificial intelligence to identify mispriced options and trade automatically. And then I run a family office, and I invest mainly in fintech and health tech that correlates with those other 2 businesses.
Perfect. Thank you, and thanks for being here.
Hey everyone, I'm Litan Yahav, probably the furthest guest. I flew out from Israel, so far, far away. I'm a tech founder, sold a company 8 years ago, which was an AI company that did imaging for diamonds. Sold that and been investing over the past 8 years, private equity, real estate, startups. Really interested in companies that have unique data sets. I now run an AI-powered virtual family office, which is also based on that. I'm really excited to be here.
My name is Simon Lee. I'm with Sapiens Capital Partners. I got involved in the venture business in the 90s, and so spent a lot of time kind of on Internet 1.0. More recently, I'm still in the private markets, mostly in technology. Obviously do a lot of stuff in AI and related business lines.
Perfect, welcome.
Hello. My name is Harry Clore. I know a bunch of you out there. I am the CEO and co-founder of Beyond Imagination with Ray Kurzweil, Dean Kamen, and Tony Robbins. We're building synthetic AI minds that can learn anyone's career. We call them expert minds, and presently we'll run them on our humanoid robots, but we're looking forward to also run them on figures robots. So lifetime of technology, policy and education work, as well as writer, director, producer in Hollywood, starting in Star Trek.
Okay, perfect.
Hi everyone, my name is Shane Neman. I run my own family office called Neman Ventures. My background is in tech. I founded 2 B2B SaaS companies in the past with exits. For the last 10 years, been doing early stage venture capital, mostly in tech, but also some DTC, fintech, prop tech, more generalists. And we also do real estate investing in my firm, where we buy physical assets, and also JV with other funds and managers.
Okay.
Based here in Miami.
I love that. Well, in the audience here, how many people here have invested or are participating, or maybe their company is involved in AI? Okay, that's a pretty good show. How many people here have actually used AI themselves, whether in their business or as a technology resource? Love that. Okay. Now, the great part about this is what we want to learn about is, one, what you're doing with AI, but then also where we're seeing that industry go. So why don't we start with some like real life applications of, let's say, maybe we start with Dr. Clore. We can see like what's a real life application of what you're using the technology and the software and the design with, and then also where you see that going.
Sure. So we're first going to start in elder care and healthcare, creating surgical techs, RNs, instrument cleaners and sterilizers. And the other area is in elder care, not lifting an elderly person, but doing all the other tasks. There's about 1/4 the number of elder care workers in the Western world is needed. So we're starting there, and then we'll branch into manufacturing, hospitality, retail, and we work with a variety of other partners. And as I was serious, we're not doing logistics, so we'll support Figure for that.
And for that application, is it something because someone came to you with that problem to solve, or just something that you saw as a good market opportunity yourself? Or
So both, because, and to keep in mind, so we don't sell the robots, and I think neither will Figure or well, Elon might sell his, but it's more of a robots as a service. And the core thing is you can save, quite simply, about 75% of your labor costs and get much higher productivity and more reliability as you move forward. So we did our first roadshow last year, actually, showing stuff in public. And over the next 2 years, we'll be training the first careers.
Okay, I love that. Simon, how about yourself? What about some applications on that side?
So I happen to be a large investor in a company that's doing something similar to Dr. Harry here, and they're doing humanoid robots for 3PL. So replacing 3PL workers that are doing picking and packing. It's called Figure AI. And hopefully maybe we could do a collaboration together. But other applications that I'm seeing is I'm an investor in a company called Sandbox Quantum. And that's actually a quantum computing and cryptography company. So you don't really think about it, but that's a big issue because for governments and large businesses, if there is quantum supremacy, they can break all the cryptography in the world right now. So through AI, there are ways to simulate that and figure out ways to stop that from happening and create systems that can't be broken through quantum. So those are some kind of out there applications that people aren't really thinking about when they think about AI right now.
And what do you think the adoption horizon would be? Because right now they're just being considered or adopted or created. Like how long until that actually becomes more of a common practice or more commonly used in that industry?
When it comes to governments and you know major businesses, Fortune 500 businesses, they're taking this seriously, especially the threat of quantum. So they're really starting to look at this now, especially for military applications. So it's I'm sure you have a lot to say about this. A lot, you know, it's exponential how quickly things are progressing. And so you're going to probably see things happen a lot quicker than anyone imagined.
Okay. James, how about yourself?
Yeah, so artificial intelligence it's most applicable towards anything that has high levels of documentation requirements, regulation requirements, process requirements, anything that has a lot of process involved. So that's why we chose healthcare first. When I started down this path, I was actually just wanted to be an investor in healthcare practices. But the challenge was when you started looking at healthcare practices, the profitability of the practices themselves was absolutely terrible. And then when you dig into it and say, why does the business of healthcare suck so bad? You know, I hate to say it that way, but it kind of does. You find out that physicians spend roughly 2/3 of their time doing clerical work that has nothing to do with their licensure. It's so they can get paid, so they don't get sued, so the government doesn't come after them. All of these requirements are packed in onto them. So we developed an artificial intelligence that completely automates that whole process. The workflow for the patients, the documentation for the doctor, the data collection, the ordering, and then the coding and billing. And when you do that, you give the physician back their time. It's a perfect use. And you can extrapolate that to other use cases in legal, in accounting, and you can go down through all of these different businesses that have high levels of documentation, high levels of regulatory oversight. Artificial intelligence will completely revolutionize each one of those industries over the next few years.
Okay, and how are you trying to get that in their hands by showing them that that's not going to take away other business of, so how does that work when you're trying to roll these out?
Well, in the medical space, which is very conservative in nature, people never want to be the guinea pig, right? They want to see somebody else. And so we go in and say, hey, there's this medical practice over here that just went from low single-digit EBITDA to 36% EBITDA. Is that interesting to you? And you just start like that and like, what, 36%? And by the way, you spend more time with your patients, not less. Your patients end up with better outcomes, and you get higher revenue per patient for the ones you see. It's a pretty easy sale once you just talk about what the dramatic results are. Now, the reality is the AI is asking the questions, not the doctor. So some doctors would feel, okay, wait a minute, where's my value? Well, your value is what you went to medical school to do. You didn't go to medical school to ask questions. You went to medical school to differentiate between the illnesses, not be the one to ask the questions. And once they get past that hurdle, adoption becomes quite easy.
Okay. And how about, Manuel, how about yourself? How are you seeing the use case and the actual application of AI?
Yeah, I concur with what James just said, and I come from the perspective of another industry, which is the hospitality travel, which we all see a huge amount of technology adoption in the last years. You see back in the 90s when traditional travel agents was replaced by big guys like Expedia and Booking.com, and of course recently everybody changed their way of getting a taxi by using Uber. 2007 we have Airbnb, and all those tech companies, they also adopting technology. And why? In the hospitality and travel, there is a massive amount of data. And it's actually what James just said, and then you can make a lot of efficiency in terms of how you can make those businesses grow. So when I move, I transit from executive world. I was in oil business and then as a former executive of airline here in the US. So when I started to open BTG, it was also to think what's going to be the next step in terms of the travel agents adopting AI. But also to try to challenge one scope that say machines are going to replace people, and there are things that people that cannot do and only the machines can do. So what we decided to do is to use the best what we can do in terms of process automation, for instance, robotic process automations that we can mimicking travel ticketing person, because machines can excel in some stuffs. But of course, there are other things like emotions and creativity that humans cannot be replaced, right? So we offer a lot of technology in terms of how people can get access to the data, change their flights, or maybe book a private jet on an empty seat, and you have to use machine learning for that. But also, on the other hand, we offer personalized concierge service, which you can only offer for high net worth individuals like many of you here, because you also want to have this. So this is a kind of a combination that I see both things come together in new kind of a business models. And this is what we want to do in the future.
Okay, I love that. Anyone have any comments on other use cases of applications before we move on? Yeah, let's.
Well, they're kind of unlimited, right? I mean,
Yep.
in terms of, ultimately, who in this room doesn't want a robot companion servant that when you wake up in the morning, your breakfast is ready, your clothes is laid out, when you get home, all the laundry is done, the house is clean, the yard is perfect. I think probably everybody.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess, so why don't we do,
I think Litan has a good use case for his software. I use the software, so.
Oh.
It's got AI.
Software, not about software, but I think that the whole conversation about AI is like, it's been around for many years, and it's only gotten to market, like mass market, over the past 12 months, right? OpenAI and all that, the mess around them. And I think that people are starting to understand this isn't about AI and implication. This is like one panel, but it's like talking about the internet. Like, this is the internet. People who do not adapt to the AI, to either building their own data sets and leveraging existing AI or building their own AI, right? Like he's doing. It's like, this is the internet. Every conversation should be around AI. Every company should have an AI component to them. And if they don't, they just won't survive. Just whoever didn't adopt to the internet in the 90s is not around anymore, right? So I think it's like, it's everywhere, and it will be even more and faster, and it's going to grow exponentially.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what the saying is now is there will be two types of companies in the future, those who use AI and the ones that are extinct.
Okay, and Simon, how about yourself? You have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I think people talk about in terms of AI, in terms of how they use them, and we use it individually. But there's a whole class of really machine learning, which ultimately become more automated, that's used to sort of control things that we don't see. So what happens in your ambient environment? What happens in public space? And that requires a lot more information. You've heard people talk about proprietary data sets. A lot of the things that we see in AI today are being used like ChatGPT, where people are basically accessing what's available on the internet. So that a lot of those large language models will ultimately converge into what's sort of unique. But these proprietary data sets allow us to do all kinds of really interesting things, right? Not only for a specific vertical, as an example, or if you got access to like what's going on, like all the movement out in public space, what does that let you do? How can you optimize transportation? So between the Ubers and everybody probably uses Apple Maps or Google Maps, you're getting less than 10% of every vehicle. At some point, we're going to get all of it. And what does that mean for the world, right? That's probably has bigger implications for society at large, which are, again, tremendously interesting.
And I guess before we need help with like the robots and AI in your own home, maybe we'll get there with the healthcare facilities, and we might need that soon for parents or things that way. What's some applications that people out here in the audience could actually start using themselves? So whether it's on due diligence, I just saw Google just announced their Gemini just launched today. They did a big announcement for it, 3 different service platforms. I think it outperformed human experts on the multi-task test. So lots of things going on in them becoming available. XAI from Elon Musk, he's raising $1 billion. I think he did 123 million already raised. So what are some like use cases, I guess, for them of how they can implement some of that technology, either whether it's being built or whether a tool is something that you've seen that could be used that, once again, if it's not the internet, you're going to be left behind. So what are those things so they don't get left behind?
For me, I use ChatGPT every day, right? And ChatGPT 4 has plugins now where you can upload a spreadsheet and just ask it anything you want, right? And you used to have to ask an analyst those questions, and they'd have to come back to you hours later and give you the data that you want, or crunch the data the way you want it. You can actually even ask ChatGPT 4, what data should I be looking for? And it'll tell you what you should be looking for if you don't even know what you're looking for, which is crazy. Right now, maybe analysts will be out of business soon because the things that you would have to hire people who are smarter than you to do can be done in a matter of seconds just by uploading some data.
But you got to be mindful that sometimes it's full of shit.
Yes.
So it can
it's wrong.
It can completely hallucinate, and we saw the best example of that on 60 Minutes with Google.
Yeah.
Where it made up all of its answers. And there's several lawyers now who are in trouble, a bunch of accountants who are in trouble. So I use it the same way. I use it as a real smart, like, check this and see what you have to say. Most of the time I don't like its corrections, but if you work with it, you can use it. But use it as an advisor, but always realize that it could be a bullshitter.
So as an investor, I get a lot of companies that come across my desk, and I don't think I've seen a deck that didn't have the words AI in it,
Yeah.
right? And so what's very interesting is that there's very few companies that are actually doing AI. Mm-hmm. Still, there's very few companies that are actually doing AI. Everyone says they do AI, but the reality is they don't. And so when you think about what the standard person can do, AI's been around a long time. ChatGPT got announced a year ago. Now everyone's an expert in AI because they can go to ChatGPT and use it. Yeah. AI is fundamentally a very hard thing to build. You have to have classifiers that come from large amounts of data. Then you have to have a learning capability based off of the real world and use that comes back and trains it after you have that initial classifier built. And when you start digging into what actually has real AI, it's still somewhat limited.
So I read a really good article that NFX released about how they define AI, and they put 5 levels of companies and their AI level to it. And there's a basic one, which is like, it's nice to have, and the highest one is that company would not exist without developing its own models, and then everything's on a spectrum. And I agree, I think AI is a spectrum, and it is a buzzword like crypto and blockchain used to be, and I don't remember what was before that, but there's like a ton of buzzwords going out there. I do think that now it is more like the internet, and if you don't have any one of those levels, either one or the other, you will not have a right to exist.
And I completely agree with that. So as you are discriminating and as you're your own investor looking at what's out there, make sure you're looking for a mechanism that you could not do yourself if you really thought about it, right? If you're not going to be able to see something that's fully automated, making decisions and learning on its own, then probably the gradations of AI that was mentioned are probably limited, which means that investment will probably get overrode. Every company has to use AI, whether it's something as simple as, the ChatGPT interfaces to be able to do a large language analysis. I use ChatGPT all the time. I love it, right? I mean, it's a fantastic tool. But at the end of the day, it's a tool that I use. And so if you're going to integrate that into your business processes, or if you're looking for a company to invest in that actually has integrated those processes, and you can take advantage of that efficiency is what you should be measuring.
Yeah, and I think that building on this point, as an investor, when you look also for the opportunities, you have to see, like James said, in terms of business process. You can find business process in that particular business that you are about to invest, and you know that this could be optimized. It could be optimized because they can be more efficient, and they can give some large scales in terms of cost, and of course that particular investment can go high for that. Not only in terms of business optimization, but also in terms of new business opportunity. And again, I face this case in my own company, and when I pitch to investors, we have a round open right now. This is the way that I tell them. So for instance, in case of a private jet business, I think that I send a poll to the audience. So today in the US, 50% of the private jets fly empty. And why they fly empty? Because when you pay for a jet from here to New York, in that price, there's also the repositioning cost. And the private jet is like a Uber. They go for anywhere. So you need to have machine learning to predict the pattern, to understand where they're going to be in the next phase. And then you can offer that empty leg, for half of the price. So when I start the business, I say, look, that's a huge opportunity here because it's a very fragmented market with only the top 10 operators like NetJet, they concentrate 30% of the market. That was the same case of Airbnb came to the marketing. Business that they are very fragmented with a lot of data with a very low use of technology. So those are the opportunities that as an investor you can see that with AI you can be one step ahead. And that's a kind of a practical example, right?
No, I love that. And I guess we'll make sure our team members have a microphone in the audience in case we have any questions. But if there are, let us know and we'll come to them. So if you don't have one now, think about them. But before we go in there, I guess the same thing as you talked about making sure anyone can use ChatGPT. You want to make sure that it's not just them doing what you could do on your own. How do you actually present whether you have a service or software yourself, or if you're investing in it, so that it passes a sniff test, whether it's in an elevator pitch, in a deck, or a quick email, so it's not just like, oh, you do AI, everyone does AI. How does it pass that sniff test? And that could be from personal experience that you've seen or that you presented on.
So for an investor, I came from an interesting conference a couple weeks ago where literally there are hundreds of products, AI products. There are actual AI products built off of others, like ChatGPT and a dozen other LLMs out there. And then the keynote the next day from Microsoft made them all irrelevant. So you've got to be aware that the giants are also working on things. So what you should be working on is something that they're not looking at. And that's the reason two of us are involved in humanoid robotics, because they're not. And that's why he's building very interesting medical systems, because right now they're not. So that's my first thing is be cautious, because there's some really cool things that people are developing. But unfortunately, Microsoft wiped them all out with a single product. And the other area is to be very cognitive of what's happening with your competitors and what they're using, because they'll wipe you out if you're not using some sort of tool. You don't have to necessarily invest in it, but you should get it. I've yet to see a good real estate AI application, so he and I are going to get together and build that.
So in my mind, because everything says AI, I assume nothing has AI. And I look at it and I say, what is the business case that actually is going to allow this company to win? Because everyone says they've got AI. You're looking at it and saying, and I'll, again, abuse my own company, so I'll take the shameless plug, sorry. No. But I'm going to take your EBITDA from 3% to 30%. Now, why can I do that? Because we use artificial intelligence to do processes that intelligent humans used to do. As you're looking at any company, forget the word AI, even forget how they're utilizing it. What is the absolute benefit that is hands down better than any other company out there? And then you'll know that true AI is actually being used.
That's absolutely true. So I actually invested in a prop tech SaaS company that actually turns out they didn't know they were AI, and now they're AI. So I think in that respect also is that you don't know what your product is actually going to be, and you might pivot a couple of times. So, for example, I invested in a company called ResiDesk, which is it was aiming to be for residential property managers to be able to efficiently figure out whether or not their property managers are actually doing their job, because that's actually a really hard thing to measure, right? You don't know like how fast they're getting back to tenants or potential people who are leasing. And there's nothing to figure out. But kind of to shorten this, they figured out that the key to what they were doing actually was having a special AI that can interact with your tenants or your people who are leasing with you and figure out their sentiment. You just fix their toilet, and then they send you a Google review link right after. And who knew that Google reviews for buildings is really important, right? So that's AI, right? So it may not seem like it is, but you might have to pivot that way.
Okay.
There are
And Simon?
a couple of ways, at least I use to tell. One is the differentiation in the data set, which you've kind of heard from a number of people, because that allows you to kind of build the models, do the training, establish kind of ground truth, hopefully, and then get that accuracy that you need, because this really is a statistical game. So you're talking about false positives, false negatives, right? Nothing is perfect necessarily in this world, certainly in the artificial intelligence world. The second thing is who's involved. If you're thinking that the company you're invested in is going to develop a true AI like a robot, like who's on this team? Are they people that have built robots? How involved have they been in their history? If it's just a bunch of guys that got a slick deck and they look good and sound good and the pitch sounds right, but there's not a match between the capability and the vision, well, that's pretty easy, right? Because none of this is easy. Some of the chat robots, as an example, have become easier because of all the work that was done a decade ago, right? Now roll back 10 years and see, how good were they then at answering questions? Because we hadn't done enough NLP work at the time.
No, thank you, Simon. Lyndon, do you have anything to add to that?
We've done this twice already.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with the data set. I think that's the moat. I think that the AI on top of the data set is going to become commoditized, and that a real moat of a company will just be the data set they have. Like, imagine trying to train an autonomous vehicle without the data set that Google has on all the street views around the world. Like, that's the moat, the street data. And the AI on top of that is already commoditized. You can use whatever AI to analyze that data set. So I really believe in the data set as the moat and what is the key differentiator.
Or Tesla's cameras, right?
Yeah.
So for me, since it looks like we have 56 seconds left, 55, 54, I'll note that since I also am a writer, producer, director in Hollywood, that we just went through a year of massive, longest strikes for writers and for actors. I was actually part of the process to try to solve that. The WGA's concern was that the studios would just use AI to make sure that no human would ever again get a copyright, and they're probably right. And so they resolved that by requiring a human to be the first in the loop, and they have to be a WGA writer. The Actors Guild freaked out because the studios were all planning on using every actor's voice after they did one job, and they could then duplicate them whenever they wanted. So there are a lot of abuses that are out there that we have to be aware of. But for instance, Hollywood's totally changing. The way you edit a film, the way you create animation, the way you do lighting, the way you'll block a script out, etc. But fortunately, human plus AI, which no one mentioned here, is generally always going to be better than just AI alone. And until it's perfect, I will maintain actually AI plus human beats AI.
No, I love that. And I think one of the great parts about these events for everyone that's interested or has used AI, like utilize the resources that we have here on stage, experts in their individual niches, and you have questions about what they're doing or just the industry, like bounce those off of them because they live and breathe in this space. So just utilize resources.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any of your questions as well as probably everyone else on this panel. I'm just going to speak for them. So come up and ask us questions. And for myself, I've got a new round that I'm launching in January. So if you're interested in investing in humanoid AI robotics, let me know.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we have a whole lineup this afternoon, but we're going to start with another standalone speaker here in just a second. So why don't we give our panel a little round of applause? Thank you very much.